Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, that's right. Across the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator. Hi, and good morning to you. How are you? How you doing? Are y'all ready already? You ready for the next big day of the show? Yeah, I'm all up and awake and ready to go. And man, hump day already. The best thing about a long weekend, of course, is the short week on the other side. And it doesn't get much better than this, my friends. It does not. It's so good. It's so good. All right. So, what do we got going on here this morning? What be the haps? What are we doing? Well, we are, we're ready to rock and roll here. We're ready to talk about all the things that you want to talk about in hour one this morning. We've got all the stories and a little bit of supposition about what we could be facing in the upcoming legislative session. We've got the latest on the latest and I guess the final decision on the Eastman case, which has finally gotten kind of wrapped up. No word yet on what's happening with the Jenny Armstrong case, but well, let's just say that I'm interested to watch that. I'm interested to see what happens there because that could spell the difference between a bipartisan majority in the House and a Republican majority in the House. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to be coming out with that, and we're gonna talk about all that and do that. We will also in hour two be talking with Mike Shower, who is going to be joining us, and I suppose I should turn that off. Who is going to be joining us and talking with us about the upcoming session, everything that he can, everything that he can think of and expect. And probably, I imagine we're going to probably be talking about the new Legislature Hostel, which is the new building that the Legislative Council has decided to throw money at and build up, and that is the new apartment building down in Juneau. They had a building donated to them by one of the local committees, and they are going to turn it into a apartment complex for legislators, because the one thing you keep hearing about is, of course, that there's just not enough. There's just not enough, no room at the inn, so to speak. Especially when it comes time after May, and the tourists are all getting ring, and then you get a potential special session and everything else. And so that's what they're but who, baby, it's money. $8 million is what is the number that we read yesterday. $8 million is going to be the final contract number. So we'll talk about that. But Mike Shower is going to be joining us in hour 2 of the big radio program, and we'll be ready for him. I'm kind of excited to talk to him. It's been from the new year. I will say that this is just me personally, but there was in the last week of last year, where we basically had no politics. I gotta say, in my mind, that was a stunning success. That whole scenario was a stunning success because I felt just so good about it. And Mike Shower got a chance to be the last guest of the year, and that was fun. So I'm interested to see how he feels now that he's going to be one of the first guests of the year. So we'll see what comes of that, and we'll be enjoying that, hanging out and chit-chatting, starting at the top of hour 2. So there you go. So I guess we should dive into it. I guess that's what we need to do. Start looking at it and figuring out where we go from here and what we want to talk about. I will open up the phone lines as well if you would like to be part of it, and feel free to do so. You can give us a call at 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And of course, the program today being brought to you by your friends over there at Satellite West, at satellitewest.com, Satellite Technical Services. They can pretty much keep you in contact regardless of where you are in the state of Alaska. Be it Wrangell or Rampart, Minchumina or Minto, Caltag or Cake, they can keep you informed and connected. SatelliteWest.com is where you go for that, and we'll do it. But phone lines are open if you want to sound off, and we would love to hear what you have to say. We even have a piece of good news today, because my goal for 2023, and you guys are going to have to hold me to this sometimes, because sometimes we're going to get busy and I'm going to forget or whatever. But my goal for 2023 is to have one piece of good news every day. One, even if it's just a single solitary piece of good news, then that's what we're looking for. One single solitary piece. So I've got a piece for today. I'm happy to announce that I have a single piece of good news. I mean that, and by good news, I mean that means it's a non-political kind of, the good news. So anyway, I guess we will start. Well, I guess there's a couple different stories. Trying to decide which slant I want to take on this, because what's becoming more and more apparent to me as I read the various news outlets, the Alaska Beacon, the ADN, the Must Read Alaska, the Alaska Watchman, as I read all these different news outlets, one is, one is left, one is right, and I'm trying to find kind of the truth in the middle, which, with kind of the unbiased, I guess not unbiased, but I'm looking for the middle ground. I'm looking for kind of the truth in the middle that's not polluted by, personal opinions and everything else. And it's becoming more and more apparent that the ADN has become the mouthpiece for the more progressive side, and not just the more progressive side, but the for some of the progressives, yes, but also from what I would call would be the pro-government growth side. Remember, it's gotten to the point now. I mean, just look at the makeup of the coalition in the Senate, and it's not just progressive versus conservative or Democrat versus Republican. It is pro-government spend, pro-bigger government at the expense of the citizen, than smaller government. That's what it all comes down to right now. And I think the ADN has become really the mouthpiece for the pro-government spend. We just can't live within our means. We couldn't possibly cut anything crowd. And there's a case in point here in a story that we're going to get into in this hour that comes out. Now, the story originally was from KTOO, which is the Juneau public radio, and it starts off with state workers say Alaska food stamp backlog problems go back years. The thousands of Alaskans who have been waiting without food stamps for months is due partially, according to the health commissioner Heidi Hedberg, that was caused by the 2021 cyber attack and a huge influx of paperwork after the state ended its public health emergency for COVID. But then the story goes on to say sources inside and outside the division say the problem goes back much further. The blame for the backlog on you can blame the backlog on chronic understaffing, and says that deep workforce cuts in 2021 sent the division into chaos. Maybe I should read this in a news. The backlog on chronic understaffing and the deep workforce cuts in 2021 sent the division into chaos. Many of the thousands of Alaskans who rely on public assistance say they're desperate for relief. The state workers say they've been harassed and even threatened with violence, making them feel unsafe at work. Well, here's an idea. If somebody threatens violence at a public assistance office, maybe that should just make them ineligible for public assistance. I mean, I'm just saying. If you're coming out there, hand out for a freebie, and I mean, I know we're taking care of everybody, but if you're walking up there with your handout as a freebie, then maybe you ought not to threaten people and make them feel unsafe. I'm just saying. KTOO spoke with 2 employees within the Division of Public Assistance who say mismanagement and short staffing are behind the month-long backlog for food stamps. They say that it is a systemic issue that's gone unaddressed for years. And then, of course, their accounts are corroborated by union officials. Okay? Because union officials definitely have no dog in this fight, right? I mean, they're completely unbiased and nonpartisan. Union officials, case managers, and social workers. They wouldn't give their names because they were afraid that they, lose their jobs. So, but this is the subheading down in the story. This is after they set the story up with like 4 or 5 paragraphs about, and you just heard kind of the doom and gloom, right, of the 4 or 5 paragraphs. And then the subheading is Alaskans are paying for budget cuts. OMG. Yeah, you can see where this is going, folks. You can see exactly where this is going. And it's not in a good place. We'll continue to talk about this here in just a minute, but we are up against the break. So let's get started, shall we? We'll be back with more. Phone lines are open if you want to sound off on this and tell me what your thoughts are. But I'm going to continue to go down this and talk about it because everything in this story is not as it seems. and we're going to talk about why I think they're propping this story up or putting this story forward the way that they are. Why I think they're doing it this way. We're going to continue that discussion in just a moment. It is the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Well, okay. Let me go back up here and see what you guys are talking about. Good morning, my friends. How are you doing this morning? Look at all the beautiful, beautiful people here in the chat room. Connection is fairly good. Try plugging into your router if you're on Wi-Fi. I'm not on Wi-Fi. Damn it. All right. I jiggled with some of the stuff in the system last night thinking, oh, that'll fix it. And, of course, it's, it is what it is. Hopefully it's a little more stable today than it was yesterday. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah, let's talk Animal House, says Kevin McKay. Kevin McKay, I think because we were talking about the hostel there. Which I think is, or maybe it's the frat house. Maybe we should call it the frat house instead of the hostel. Kevin also says, my guess is that no legislators will stay there, probably mostly staff. Well, I mean, it's only got 30 planned rooms, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. 30 planned rooms. So, yeah, I mean, maybe, because, you got 60 legislators, plus everybody's got staff, at least one. Some of them have 3 staffers. So, I mean, you got a 300-person backlog there trying to figure out where to put everybody. But, yeah. Okay. Let me go back. I'm almost going to hear. If these folks end the per diem for legislators and offer that rat's nest as a housing alternative for legislators, then no one with any moxie will ever consider a run for state house. As per what Kevin just said, he said he would expect that probably only staffers would live there. Good news story. I just had bacon. Enough said. That is good news, my friend. That is fantastic news. I wish that I had just had bacon. Chaos, unsafe. I'm looking. Efficiency in government, the greatest story of all time. There's something else. My dad used to hit the side of the TV. That stabilized it. Man. Yeah, 30 planned rooms for $8 million. Seriously, man, these better be some very nice rooms. That's all I'm saying. The building is very cool looking. I don't know if you've seen the building, but the building is very, very. Where is it? Right here. Oh, here it is. The building itself is pretty cool looking. I mean, it's definitely it's the old Art Deco style. Definitely an old Art Deco style building there. I mean, I like the look of it as far as architectural goes. 33 apartments. Yep. But yeah, I mean, you could see this building's been around for years and years and years and years. So, But definitely, I mean, I dig the Art Deco style. It's, moderate Art Deco styling on the outside. But yeah, built in 1932. So, I mean, they gave it to the thing, blah, 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 blah. Building's almost 100 years old, and $8 million. It better be super nice rooms for that kind of money. I mean, I can't. Can I even do the math on that? My brain this morning. Where's my I've got my calculator button. Got a new keyboard here, and I'm trying to figure out what the calculator. So $8 million. No, 800. 8 million divided by 33. Boy, it's only $242,000 a room. Don't worry. Okay. Well, we're back. Good morning. Welcoming you to the Wednesday edition of the show. Hour one continues. Before we were so rudely interrupted by the commercial break, we were talking about what's going on down in Juneau with this new youth hostel or frat house or whatever that they're planning on doing. Now, initially, when I heard this, I thought, well, okay, great. That makes sense. Let's do that. I mean, let's, because we continue to hear about the per diem at $309 a day and all this kind of stuff, and how it's impossible for legislators to be able to find affordable housing, especially when it comes to the extra special sessions and the whole, I mean, it's a thing, right? And so initially I was like, okay, fine. I mean, they got the building, just put them up in it. But nope, we can't just put them in the building. We can't just, throw them on cots and let them go. They got to be. So they got a building for free. The building was donated to the state of Alaska. Interestingly enough, the building was donated by an organization called the Juneau Community Foundation. No, I'm sorry. That was the original organization. They donated the building at no cost. They also donated $2 million to pay for the building's renovations. The original owner of the company was the owner of Alaska Electric Light and Power. And when he sold that power company, he donated most of the proceeds. And one of the conditions was the creation of something called the Juneau Capital Fund, which is intended to support the capital as long as it remains in Juneau. Basically, it was an organization dedicated to protecting the legislators' status in keeping the capital in Juneau, keeping the legislative session in Juneau, which, by the way, flies directly contrary to some of our charter of changes where we want to change the venue, meaning we want to move the legislative session out onto the road system. You'll remember that one is change number 2 to the charter of changes. But anyway, so they donated this building, right? The building is old, 1932. It's it's 90 years old, almost 100 years old. And it was originally constructed as an apartment complex, but they converted it to offices back in the 80s. Well, the Legislative Council has approved spending $6.6 million to renovate the buildings downtown. But that's not all. 6.6 was the number that is in the legislative. That's what the legislative committee says. Mike Shower says that he's worried about the project's rising costs. In February, just 11 months ago, the Legislative Council voted 9-5, in favor of a $5.5 million plan based on the preliminary estimates. But the final contract with Dawson Construction is worth $8.6 million. So which number are we using? 5.5 was the preliminary. Now they're saying 6.6, but the overall contract is worth $8.6 million. Look, let's just do the math on this. There are 33 apartments in this building. Remember, I was initially in favor of this because I thought, well, we're going to do the housing. It'll be fine. At least then they could stop griping about the housing allowance and we could stop paying them $307 a day. I mean, they'll still get some per diem, but they won't get the biggest part is the housing, right? So let's just take a look at that to see what it would cost for 33 apartments, which again, only 15 one-bedroom apartments and 18 studio apartments with common laundry on each floor. They don't even have their own little laundry or anything else. 15 one-bedroom apartments, 18 studio apartments at the cost of $200,000 apiece. That is with the $6.6 million figure, right? If you go to the shower, when he said that the whole contract is worth $8.6 million, and you divide that out, you're talking about $260,000 apiece for a one-bedroom or a studio apartment. Now, I mean, I'm no financial genius, nor do I play one on TV. But $200,000 to not to build. This is not a fresh build. This is a renovation of something that's already there, which I know sometimes can be, more expensive. But $200,000 per apartment? What? What? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's look, I'm not advocating that, we should, hand them a tent and a cot and an air mattress and say, there you go. That's your sleeping arrangements for the, I mean, because then who's going to want to go to Juneau, right? But they should also not be, the Taj Mahal. I mean, the Taj Mahal. They should also not be 5-star, Four Seasons kind of accommodations. I just don't know. But $8.6 million. That's the total cost of the contract. Again, and this goes right back to what I was talking about with the ADN and how they're reporting on this stuff. Because they report at the top that it's only 6.6 million, and then buried down in the thing, it's like, well, yeah, but Shower says that it could be upwards of 8.6. That's the whole contract. Okay, so is it going to be 8.6 or is it going to be 6.6? Because there's quite a bit of a difference there. I mean, there's a significant difference between 8.6 and 6.6. I'm sorry. So we got talking about that during the break, which is why I came back to that, because before we went to the break, we were talking about the state workers and the food stamps and all this stuff there. Easily distracted. Shiny object this morning. So shall we go back to talking about that? Let's jump in. Let's jump back. Let's jump back, Jack. Kiss myself. Let me jump back over here. And we'll talk about that. You feel free to call in, by the way. Phone lines are open this morning at 907-4. Oh, there is a phone. I didn't get the massage. We have one line on hold. So I guess we'll go over there first and we'll talk to them before I jump back into the other direction and start over there. So caller, I apologize. Who is this? Where are you calling from? What's on your mind? Good morning.
You're so funny. Yes.
Oh.
My name is Bonnie. I live in North Pole. Yeah.
Good morning, Bonnie in North Pole. What's on your mind, dear?
Well, on my mind this morning is I feel every day that I feel lucky. I go to the gas station and I can get gas because soon I will have to go up there to get charge my car. But so far, I can get gasoline. Now that's special.
Because you don't want to have to go charge your car. Is that what you're saying?
Because I don't have one of those charging cars that Biden will buy me. Yeah.
Right.
But every day I got fuel. I got my fuel yesterday. That was a lovely gift. $1,000 to fill my tank. It was such a lovely thing. And I thank Mr. Biden for every gallon. But I'm going to think positive now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for the next year, and I'm going to have a sense of purpose, and I'm going to have courage to do the hard things, and I'm going to have service to others and friends and family, and above all, love. I'm going to try real hard to do it. It's very hard lately to do all these things, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I try every day not to mention the head ding dong's name, but it's so hard every day we have people coming across the border, and guess what? We pay for everything for those lovely little people.
Well, Bonnie, it's good to have a positive attitude about all the stuff. I mean, it really is. And it's hard sometimes. I'll be honest with you. Last month, I was at the end of my rope for the end of the year, and I was definitely feeling a little down in the dauber. But you're right. You got to have a positive outlook. You got to look at it and just, count your blessings. That's what you got to do. You got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, right? That's what we got to do. We got to find out a way to do that. And I find that for the most part, this is one of the reasons why I don't focus a whole lot on national stuff, because I can't control that. What we can focus on is what we can change here in the state. And that's why we're talking about these issues right now with the session and the building and the state workers and all this other stuff. So keep your chin up, girl. Keep your chin up and keep things rolling. I appreciate you calling in and joining us. 907-433-3150. If you would like to sound off, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Let me go back. I'm coming up on the break again, so I know that we're going to get back into this, but let me just recap what we were talking about before the last break, because I got distracted. Squirrel. I'm so sorry. So we were talking about this article that was appearing in the ADN. It was a reprint out of KTOO Public Media about how the state was just the food stamps and the Division of Public Assistance was just, it was chaos, mass hysteria. The backlog was all blamed on chronic understaffing, and that deep workforce cuts in 2021 sent the division into chaos. That's an actual quote. They blame the backlog on chronic understaffing and say deep workforce cuts in 2021 sent the division into chaos. Okay, so you read that and you go, my God, who's responsible for this cutting and this deep? This is an outrage, right? This is what you should be feeling. And of course, they spoke to the two employees, then they corroborated it with union officials. Because, and then it goes down, and the subheading reads: Alaskans are paying for budget cuts. That's the subheading. That's the the next big subheading in bold print in the article. The employee that was quoted here in the paper said workloads got too high after the Dunleavy administration cut more than 100 jobs from the Division of Public Assistance in 2021. Now, again, they cut more than 100 jobs. Notice how that's carefully worded. Just notice how that the Dunleavy administration cut more than 100 jobs from the Division of Public Assistance. But that's it it's carefully worded. Buried down 3 or 4 paragraphs later is, these weren't layoffs, according to Hedberg, the health commissioner. Instead, the posts were allowed to empty by attrition. So these weren't layoffs where they went out and they laid people off. A lot of these were either vacant positions that weren't filled with a body to begin with, or they were just not filled after the previous person left. Now, I know that could still create, a workload and yada, 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 but you can already see where this is going. If we have a position that's unfilled and funded, you should not cut the funding because we might need that. Look at what happened at look at what happened at the Division of Public Assistance. Because, that they have identified in the past, I remember Tammy Wilson had identified hundreds and hundreds of jobs, positions in the budget that were funded but not filled, being used as slush funds for those departments and allowing them to basically use that money for other things inside the department. I'm, yes, I want to talk about this some more. And I want to get your take on this. Am I out of line on this? Give me a call. Let's discuss it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
I mean, am I out of line on this, or is it am I just seeing what I want to see? Or because it's like they want to blame it all. They're this whole story, the whole thrust of this whole story is that the Dunleavy administration cut deep into hundreds of jobs. And but they're saying it right there. Alaskans are paying for budget cuts. You can already see that they're setting up the mood and the story and the mantra for the oh, did you see my new shirt? Look at that. Look at that shirt. Yeah. Soon to be available at MichaelDukesShow.com. But you can already see that this is how they're setting up the argument. They're setting the playing field for the argument. Alaskans are already paying for budget cuts. We don't need more budget cuts. Medical insurance is also in jeopardy. State workers are struggling because they're just underpaid. We're dropping like flies. They're not investing in retaining employees. Life's tough all over is all I got to say to that. Life is tough all over. You think the last 3 years have been a cakewalk? You think the last 3 years that many employers have been dropping a ton of money trying to retain their employees and you think that they're out there just, maybe it's just me. All right. I'm going, I'm scrolling down here. I've been missing a lot of it. But this is back on the building thing. Donna Ardwin says, but it would cost too much to move the session to the road system. I think that there was some sarcasm in that. Let's see here. The grant programs are resulting in nonprofits, federal, they can't get enough resources. How about all the hidden costs they put in did they put the diving? Does that $267,000 include cable? I don't know. I just don't know. Terry says tents and cots work for her, get the job done and get out. Well, the sentiment I can agree with, but the practicality, I understand what's going on, right? I mean, because practically you're like, well, nobody's going to want to go to Juneau if they know that they're going to have to sleep in a tent for 4 months. I mean, I got to think. Jim says the Love Shack, at least they'll have a quiet place for beer pong and leg wrestling. Well, it's true. The state has offices scattered all over the place in Juneau. Some are in the gym building. Maybe, yeah. I mean, and maybe instead of renting from other entities, maybe the state should, since they own the building and they're going to renovate it, maybe they should, use it for office space instead of paying rent to other people. But my landlord has an EV electric vehicle, says it's not good. First day, he only got 7 miles before a charge. Well, I mean, Sarah Vance made a post the other day about she had to wait. She was following her brother up. Her brother was coming up from the peninsula to Anchorage, and she said they got stuck. I think it was they had to wait in Girdwood because they ran out of he ran out of charge, and they had to wait 90 minutes in Girdwood to be able to make it from Homer to Anchorage. So yeah, I mean, okay. All right. I've never heard of a more overstaffed, dysfunctional entity in my whole life. That's children's services. We're talking about division of, but yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Donna says she wants that shirt. It's a nice shirt, man. I mean, look at that. That's a nice shirt. It's a good example of intellectual dishonesty of KTOO, AD, and most of the rest of Alaska media. I mean, you can see it. They're setting the stage right now. That's what they're trying to do. I think this is the overarching thing, and whether it's intentional or it's subconscious, that's what they're doing. They are trying to set the stage for the upcoming legislative session and any potential fights. I think they may be a little nervous that the House is going to organize under Republicans, and it's going to be a bit of a stalemate. I think that's what they're worried about, because they're already setting the stage for any discussion about cuts. Why? Well, because it says right here, Alaskans are paying for budget cuts, right? All right, we got to jump back into it. Here we go, The Michael Duke Show. Well, okay. One final segment here in this hour of the program. And I guess my whole point of this story that we're talking about here, the story about the state workers say Alaska's food stamp backlog problems go back years, and then they proceed to blame the Dunleavy administration for cutting. I mean, it has nothing to do, of course, with the expansion of public assistance under, the virus. It doesn't have anything about the expansion of that or the state of emergency or the federal monies or all the different changes that came out of that. It has nothing to do with that. It all has to do with the fact that they are chronically understaffed, chronically overworked, and that the deep workforce cuts in 2021 sent the division into chaos, in their words. That's what they're... And again, Alaskans are paying for those budget cuts. That's the subheading here. So what I'm saying is I think we can already see that you're already seeing that they're setting this story up for any potential that if for some reason and some way, and maybe they're feeling a little nervous that somehow the House, the Alaska House, is going to be a Republican majority, and they may be at loggerheads with the bipartisan majority in the Senate. And so maybe they're already trying to set the field up to short circuit any attempt to cut the budget. I mean, even though that it's the largest budget in state history and everything else. But I think Kevin in the chat room said it correctly. This is a good example of the intellectual dishonesty of KTOO, the ADN, and or most of the rest of Alaska media. But this is the kind of story that we're seeing all over the place. Again, the story about the hostel, the frat house down in Juneau. That story. Well, why wouldn't you want to do it? Why would And of course, down at the end, Mike Shower. It's going to be knives out, I think, for anything of a smaller government, cut the budget, less interference. I think you're going to see that all those stories are, every story is going to be some reason why the government should spend more money. That's my, that's kind of my inclination at this point. I think that's what they're going to be talking about. And that's kind of the way they're going to be framing the arguments over the next 5 or 6 months as the session proceeds, regardless of who ends up in power in the House and the Senate. Yeah. Jeffrey in the chat room says there are hundreds of rooms in Healy empty during the winter. Bring on the session. I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, hold the session in Greeley, hold it in Delta, hold it in Healy, hold it down, hold it in Willow. I mean, yes, there is not a housing shortage in most of the other places, or I guess a hospitality, shortage in most of the other areas of the state. Bring it on. Bring it on. It's frustrating. So we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see where things go from here. But this was my initial reaction. Oh, I didn't get to this story. I'm sorry. I apologize. Do I got time? I got time. So the good news is, and this is the headline. ADN, God bless you guys. Just God bless you. Oath Keepers member from Alaska will keep his state house seat. Okay. The plaintiff in the lawsuit challenging the eligibility of David Eastman to hold office said he will not appeal a judge's decision allowing Eastman to retain his seat in the House. Without the appeal, Eastman is guaranteed to keep his seat in the legislature despite his lifetime membership in Oath Keepers, a far-right militia group linked with violent insurrection. Okay, I mean, this is the thing. I'm not saying that there weren't members of Oath Keepers that did bad things, right? I'm not saying that. But it's like every news story has to be far-right militia it's all guilty by association kind of thing. Now, Randall Kowalski, who filed the lawsuit, said that they decided not to appeal the judge's ruling because they did not believe that they could win an appeal, given that Eastman could plausibly argue that while he was in the Capitol on the day that the other members of Oath Keepers forced their way into the Capitol, he himself did not enter or intend to aid or stop the peaceful transfer of power. Which is, I mean, duh, right? I mean, I was just standing there, and that it does not mean that I was helping anybody. I was standing outside watching the proceedings. The other said that another reason that the part of the decision not to appeal the case was a concern over creating precedents that would allow members of the Oath Keepers and similar organizations, maybe the NRA, to hold office in the future. So that was the other thing, because they knew that they would lose. And if they did, it would become precedent. And they were concerned about that because they felt that David Eastman was exactly what he thought he was, an oath keeper who committed to a group we believe is seditious. In the end, we proved it, but we weren't able to prove his intention. So this is all about leaving the door open. This is really what this is about. Leaving the door open for future lawsuits. That's what it's about. Because if they had taken it to the Supreme Court and been defeated, then the precedent was set and there would be no standing on any future lawsuits. Now, if anybody wants to run for the legislature, then they too can be challenged on their and by the way, Kowalski was represented pro bono by the attorney who was part of the Northern Justice Project. Meanwhile, Eastman had to fork out tens of thousands, well, hundreds of thousands of dollars was the last thing I heard. I heard it was over $150,000 the last I heard before the end of the year to defend himself against this. So who in their right mind who may have joined some organization, the NRA or Oath Keepers or some other organization that's out of favor, who in their right, or somebody joined an organization 25 or 30 years ago, maybe your views have changed. Maybe you were some kind of rabble-rousing radical back 30 years ago, but you've mellowed in your old age and now you have a view for change. Who is going to want to run for office when it's going to cost you not only whatever it costs to run for office, but then you're going to have to defend yourself against some yahoo who's doing it for free? Yeah, maybe there should be some kind of countersuit here. Or maybe that, I don't know. I just don't know. But that's the state of the world we live in right now, folks. We got more coming up. Don't go anywhere. Hour 2 ahead, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're going to continue with more here in just a moment. Mike Shower will be our guest in hour 2. We will continue right after this. Are you now, or have you? Wait a second. We got to do this the right way, right? Let me do this the right way. So this is what it's going to sound like in the future. It's going to wait. I got to turn the music off. This is what it's going to sound like in the future. Are you now, or have you ever been a member of any communist organization, any seditious organization? You must tell me now. Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be like. At long last, have you no sense of decency? No, decency seems to have gone right out the window. That's that's the, I mean, really, right? I mean, that's where we're at right now. Can you tell this committee with a straight face that you hold no views that are contrary to our own? No, I don't think we can. I just don't think we... Baby. All right, so Mike Shower is going to be joining us here shortly. Let me go back up here and see what DeShada loves his sound effects. Oh, man, I got so many cool things that are all part of this right now. Mainly, I just invited you all here so
that I could steal your souls.
it's stuff like that just Makes me giggle. Politidic says just ignore the pre-pandemic the poverty level here in Alaska living on welfare was only 18%. Now 1/3 of Alaskans are living in poverty and off of welfare, double what it used to be. That had nothing to do with it, right? No. It's 37% of Alaskans now are on the dole in some form or another, whether it's welfare, education, welfare, medical assistance, food stamps, and actually the number across the country. Oh, this was a story that I was going to talk about. Where did I read this story? Yes, it's going to be a problem that now 100 million Americans are on some form of assistance. 100, almost fully a third of America is already, and well over a third of Alaskans are on assistance. So, I mean, you are right. You are right. 100% on that one right there. Okay. Well, I'm just. You ever have one of those? You ever have one of those things where you're like, did we agree to? I just going back through my messages to make sure that I hadn't gotten a message or something from Shower that says he's not showing up, because quite honestly, that was like 15 days ago. I don't remember. I thought we were doing it today. So he's not here yet, but that could happen. Could be. Or it could just be you and me. And that would be my fault, not his fault, just so you know. It's just how it is. Just wish the Republicans would get their act together and elect a Speaker of the House. The weakness is embarrassing. Dan. Why are you surprised? I mean, really. Again, I don't even really deal with national stuff, but why are you surprised? The Republican Party is a total poo parade and has been for years. Is it any surprise that, is it any surprise? And Harold still can't find his one-a-day vitamins for people over 30. Maybe you should have gotten the ones for people under 30, and then maybe you would have been able to find it. I mean, maybe because then you would have remembered, where did I put that thing? Okay. Yeah, the Alaska House to Congress. Oh, you think you're having a problem getting organized? Here, hold my beer. You think your organization is a mess? Here, wait, let me show you what this looks like. Yeah, the Alaska Legislature is just a microcosm of the hot, sticky mess that we have going on down in Washington, D.C. Do we really need a speaker? Says Daniel. Maybe Congress can leave us alone for 2 years. It's possible. I mean, if we're going to dream a dream, why don't we dream a dream like that, right? And then Daniel also says, hopefully McCabe can get the silver and gold legislation passed. We'll be one step ahead of the collapse of the U.S. dollar. I mean, we used to joke about that. I mean, not really joke, but, kind of in passing, like, but, oh, man. We watch what's happening with the dollar right now, and we're like, yeah, that's not, not a good thing. Harold says, wondered if the men's room in the new legislative apartments will have a Viagra dispenser. Oh, maybe we should call it the Love Shack. Maybe we should call it it's not the frat house. It's not the hostel. It's the Love Shack. Oh, from what I hear of Juneau, that would probably not be too far off sometimes in some of the craziness that ensues down there. All right, my friends, we got to jump back to it. Oh, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find links to the audio-only live stream and the podcast and all the social media sites and everything else in the world. Welcome to it, hour 2 of the big radio broadcast this morning. And I think it's probably my fault. I don't even remember. I remember what he and I talked about for the most part, but I can't remember if we set up that he was going to, I thought he was coming back on today, but it may have been wrong. I don't know, guys. It was one of those things where in my mind, I'm like, yeah, he's going to be on Wednesday. And now I'm second guessing myself and wondering, no, he never stands me up. If he doesn't show up, it's because he told me he wasn't going to show up and I have forgotten. That's just kind of how it is. It's kind of how it goes sometimes. So either Mike Showard is delayed or he told me he wasn't going to be here today. But either way, Terry is saying in the chat room that she thinks he said he wasn't sure, which could very possibly well be. I mean, let's face it. That was the last day of broadcast for 2022. And I was already mentally checked out. I was somewhere else. I was just absorbing all the Christmas goodness that my guests were driving out to me and all the us, nobody else. What's going on? Anyway, I would love to hear what you guys have to say this morning. We're continuing on our discussions. We were just finishing up our story, 2 different stories. One about the Love Shack. The Love Shack. The frat building, the hostel, the youth hostel that they're building down in Juneau for the legislature. We were talking about that, and we were also talking about the news media's propensity to already try and shape the narrative for this year's session. Talking about how, oh my God, state workers are struck. This is the headlines, all right? And these are the subheadings. Your medical insurance is in jeopardy. State workers are struggling. And Alaskans are paying for budget cuts. Right? That's the headlines right now. They're already trying to craft the narrative for what's going to be coming up in the upcoming session. Because I think they're nervous. I think they're not quite sure yet what's going to happen with the House and the organization of the House. And so we'll see what... We'll see what comes on to that, right? I mean, we just don't know what's happening. The House can the House could go to a Republican majority instead of a split coalition majority. Then that would put them at loggerheads with the coalition majority in the Senate. So there could be some fighting over the size and scope of the budget. I mean, there could be some proposals for cuts. So it sounds like they're trying to head all that off already. They're already trying to set the narrative. I I just don't know. But reading that, and between that and the fact that they want to spend $267,000 per apartment for these legislative apartments that they're talking about. And again, these are 1-bedroom or studio apartments. 1-bedroom or studio. These are not $267,000. Woof, baby. I mean, those things better be, again, it should be like the Four Seasons. The Four Seasons should be doing their thing on this. But anyway, this is good stuff. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Give us a call. Phone lines are open right now. 907-433-3150. 907-433-3150. And after some of the rumors that I've heard over the years, not just this last session or whatever, but I mean, I've been covering the legislature for 24 years. 24 years I've been covering stuff for the legislature. And you start putting them all in the same building. And there's a reason why they might call it the Love Shack, because I have heard some wild and crazy rumors over the years, none of which I'll give credence to here, but let's just say I'm not sure that that's a good idea. I'm just saying. Let's go to the phones and see what you guys have to say. I mean, am I out of line? Am I just reading into this what I want to see? Or do you feel like, yeah, that just doesn't make any sense? Let's see what you have to say as we jump over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Michael, this is Carlene in Kodiak. Good morning. About the housing for the legislature, I think that's very reasonable. There's inflation right now.
Wait a second. You think that
even to remodel a building that's practically new, they've given $7.2 million or $4.5 million to build a coffee shop in a village.
So you think, well, in a village, Carlene, I can understand because you're talking about logistical things but this is one of the major Alaskan cities, and $260,000 per apartment. These are 1-bedroom apartments. These are not multi-bedroom homes. These are not, these are a studio or 1-bedroom apartments. You're okay with $260,000 or even $200,000 a piece. You're okay with that?
No, what I'm okay with is housing for the legislature.
Well, again, in theory, I agree with you. Housing for the legislature would make sense if it doesn't cost $200,000 per room to get it done, or something like that. I mean, again, this is a building that will be mostly empty. It'll be empty for half the year. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think the sticker shock for me is the bottom line total number for a small. There's 60 legislators. There's only 33 apartments in this building, and each legislator has one staffer at least. Some of them have up to 3. So we're talking about, you're talking about 300 people, right? So with staffers and everything else, is this going to alleviate it? Much of the pressure? I don't know. I don't know. And does it make sense, even though you got the building for free, does it make sense to expend $8 million on the renovation? I don't know enough details of it now, but on the surface of it, my snap judgment, and that's exactly what it is a snap judgment when I look at it. And I'm not a contractor, so maybe if there's a contractor out there that wants to say, oh, you're full of it. But it just seems like 200. I agree. It'd be nice to have them all at a place where they could be put up and you didn't have to give them $307 a day. But I just think that $200,000 to $267,000 per apartment seems to be a little excessive.
And a big factor that's happening right now is inflation.
Well, yeah. I mean, I agree with you, but still inflation doesn't account for $267,000. That's a lot of inflationary factor built into that as well, Carlene. But I agree with you. All right. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Let me go over to the next call this morning to see what you have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello?
Am I the one to talk next? I mean,
I think so. Did it say that you're no longer muted?
oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not muted, I guess. But anyway, this is Helen Alexander up in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Good morning,
and
Helen.
I've been here for 52 years. And I ended up, my husband was a big contractor up north and all over. And he ended up dying in 88, and I ended up building places of my own. And I say it would be really, really nice if these people could come into the interior and forget about building those places down there. Let that up to the tourists. Let that land be up to the tourists. And we need legislators up here. We really do. I mean, I have rentals, and it is time. You were talking about food stamps. Oh my gosh! I mean to tell you, I'm ready to give it up and throw the towel in. People are starving, but the reason they're starving is they can barely pay the rent or don't pay the rent at all. And they take their paycheck and go down to the local, what's it called? Marijuana places. We have four of them on two lots down here in Fairbanks. And instead of them buying groceries, they buy marijuana. Now, I have 2 rentals out of 7 that I gave up, 5 of them. Let me tell you, there's another whole aspect to this whole thing. And Juneau needs to come into the interior. Our legislators need to come in and see what kind of a mess we have. And it is. It's totally.
Helen, what?
My renters will pay me the rent in 2 payments a month. They cannot pay for food. I have been helping them out for a year, 2 years. I'm not doing it anymore. They will go without anything and just to buy their marijuana. And this whole interior, along with the youth, are all. In fact, my daughter and her husband right now had to send their son down to Seattle, which they're down there picking him up now, for rehab. There's no place here to rehab these kids. And they need to come into this interior. And they need to see it. We can't afford to spend those millions on a place for those legislators to set their buns. No, I'm so much against it. I'll tell you what a piece of plywood costs us, $80 a piece.
Oh, yeah,
so why are we doing it now?
Yeah, there's definitely some costs involved in that, Helen. I mean, again, so let me break this down for a second. First and foremost, what are you saying is the main culprit here? Is the main culprit a lack of work ethic? Is it a dependency on drugs or alcohol, or is it something else?
It's not a lack of work. Honey, it's not a lack of work. I've been here for 52 years. My husband's been here for 65. And he worked 30 years at Golden Valley. You know, not drugs or anything. But we are paying the taxes. We are paying enough taxes, my husband and I, because he worked 700 hours overtime a year because that's how GVA needed it. And the taxes we pay $80,000 a year in taxes, and we're getting punished for working hard. And no, there's just so many people that don't want to work. They're so beholden to these drugs.
Yeah, so it's a work. Well, wait a second, Helen. Wait a second, because my question was not, is it a work problem? My question is it a work ethic problem? And I think you just answered that. You're saying, yes, people just don't want to work, right? Because there's work out there right now. I mean, you could go out there and find a job right now.
All my kids, I have two. And they adopted, the one family, my daughter adopted 7 children from here in the interior. My granddaughter, beautiful family that they are, decided not to have any children and adopted 9. Now, the state of Alaska does not give them, the borough doesn't help them with their house taxes. They have to have so many rooms for so many children. This is just a nightmare up here. And I love Alaska so much, I will never leave until the day I die, or as my husband does. It's beautiful. And years ago, we lived in 60, 65 below for 2-3 months. this doesn't bother me at all. What bothers me is if it gets 20 below, these people just shake and shiver. And then they're sick and they have to stay home, but they need their marijuana and they got their marijuana. And this is what bothers me.
Right.
They have no money, and I'm tired of keeping people because our taxes, my husband and I pay, we're keeping 3-4 families a year. We're paying them to rent our houses. Period.
All right, Helen. Well, I appreciate you calling in and sounding off. I'm sorry. I got to go, Helen. I'm coming up against it. We got one more call. I'm going to get it real quick here before I go. Let me go over here real quick. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yes, Michael, this is Ron in North Pole.
Hello,
you
sir.
Have terrible feedback on the caller end, by the way.
Oh, sir.
An item you touched on in the last hour, the Eastman trial.
Yes.
I saw some film footage on that a couple of weeks ago, and my gut reaction was simply that Mr. Kowalski, I believe his name is.
Kowalski, yeah.
Could have done his case a lot better justice by seeking the services of a good barber prior to trial.
just getting his hair cut. You filthy hippie. Get your hair cut. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, good. All right. Well, good. I'm glad it's
have a good day, sir.
Thank you, Ron, for calling in. I appreciate it. All right, we're up against the break. We got more coming up. In fact, in just a moment, we're going to be joined by Representative Kevin McCabe, who's going to be calling in and talking with us. We'll get his thoughts on the youth hostel, frat house, love shack down there in Juneau, and so much more. Because why not? Let's get things going. All right, the Michael Duke Show continues. We got more coming up. It's your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're back with more, and Kevin McCabe right after this.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Kevin McCabe is on the phone with us. Good morning, sir. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing good. You all ready for this? You can hear everything I got going on?
Yeah, well, welcome to the party, right?
Yeah, welcome to the party, pal. All right, hold on a second here. Let me I want to make sure I'm getting a little bit of buzz back from Kevin's phone call, and I don't know exactly why.
Might be my Bluetooth. You want me to try and take it off?
Yeah, would you try and take it off? Because I'm getting a little bit of my own. Oof. Yeah. I'm getting some of my own voice back, which I shouldn't be getting.
How's that? Any better?
Oh, that's a lot better. That sounds a lot better there. Yeah, I was getting my own voice back, and couldn't figure out what was. I thought it was me, man. Thought it was me.
No, it's always me.
That's the answer is it's always me. It's always me. All right, Kevin. Yeah, what a mess, huh? First of all, I guess I should ask you, how was your holiday, my friend? How did you enjoy the big vacation?
Well, we had a pretty good time. It just pretty low key, just Lynn and I. So I was trying to decide what to wear to the living room for New Year's, and then I ended up not even going. So
all the way to the living room, huh? Boy, that's a trip.
Right.
I mean, that's a. And I decided to just stay home and do my thing here.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm sorry, I'm doing three things here. It was definitely a chance where I had all these big plans, and one of them definitely did not plan out. I was planning on doing a bunch of different stuff, and I ended up just sitting on the couch for several days, just hanging out with my wife, drinking coffee, chatting, watching movies. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Nice.
What's your new district number? What district do I live in, Kevin? Because I can't even remember these days.
District 30.
Okay, District 30. That's what I thought. Okay. All right. So I think we got the District 30 stuff going on. Okay. So we're going to be chatting with Kevin here in just a hot second. And whoops, I didn't need to do that. And we'll be continuing on here in just a minute with him. Hold the line, Kevin. I'm gonna put you back on hold. Let me go back through the chit chats here, and see what other folks are saying. Free rent and you could smoke weed. That's an awesome deal, says Christopher. Helen paying for you to live in her houses. What a great deal. I mean, right? That she's not wrong. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Kind of a crazy time for all those folks out there. Okay. Don't forget to like and follow the show page, folks. Don't forget to come on in and join us and to get the notifications each and every day. That's what you need to do. I noticed that somebody said earlier, they said that they got asked by Facebook if they wanted to have less notifications from the Michael Duke Show. And he's like, there was not a hell no button on there. Well, I mean, but yeah, that's what they want. They were like, no, I would like less notifications from the Michael Duke Show. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. So, but make sure that you like and follow the show page so that you get notifications when we go live each and every day. That's what we need to be doing. Okay, we got we're getting ready to do our thing here, to jump back into it. Kevin McCabe is our guest, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Please, again, make sure to like and share. Let's get back to it, shall we? Okay, welcome back to the program, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Jumping into it this morning with Representative Kevin McCabe, who is been kind enough to call in and join us here and talk a little bit about, we just kind of got to catch up with him from the holidays. I think we're all feeling more refreshed and ready to go. But let's see what Kevin has to say this morning about all the stuff that's coming up in this next session. Good morning, Kevin. How you doing, my friend?
Good morning, Michael. I'm doing well. How about you?
Again, rested and rejuvenated. I'm feeling pretty good. Now you're about to face off, in the big battle. And so I kind of want to know, what your thoughts are. What's happening in the organization and everything else now that Eastman has been cleared? We still haven't heard. Have you heard anything on the Jenny Armstrong case? I'm still waiting to get some details on it. The last I heard, they were supposed to make oral arguments on like the 23rd of December, and I've heard, or not oral but written, I haven't heard a thing since.
No, I think they have met in one session, and I thought that it was supposed to be this week when he made a decision. So when the judge made his decision, so I think everybody's just kind of waiting for that. So
yeah, well,
but I haven't heard much other than that.
Yeah, so the kind of the organization of the House is still kind of on hold because you guys are still trying to figure out what the battle lines are, right? I mean, we're still trying to figure out what the actual balance of the House is.
Sure, and I mean, all politics, and especially in the House, is all about relationships. So there's lots of discussion and relationship building going on, and trying to get forgiveness for past sins and that sort of thing, and forgive others, and try to start from a level playing field. And that's all part of it, I guess.
My God, forgiveness for past sins. How dare you oppose
Right.
me on my? Oh my gosh, what a poop parade. Well, hey Kevin, we've been talking about. First we've been talking about two things. Let me talk to you first about the kind of the overview of what I was just saying about the local news. And you made a comment earlier, which I'd have to go back and search out. But basically, you said this is kind of like the perfect example of what the ADN and public media, KTOO, and a lot of the other outlets are saying. This is kind of the perfect example of kind of their, I guess, their bias or them trying to craft the narrative. Or what was your thoughts on that?
Well, my grandma used to tell me that if you don't tell the whole truth, you might as well tell a lie. And I think that we have gotten away from that as a society, and our news media is no different. Maybe they're just a reflection of us. I don't know, but they certainly leave out the important details, such as that particular story where they say that 100 people have been positions have been lost or no longer filled or whatever, and they don't tell you that this was all done via attrition and everything. It's the it might have been positions that they applied to the legislature for, like Tammy Wilson said, with no intent of filling. They were just going to be placeholders or slush funds or whatever you want to call them. But they're not telling the complete truth. They leave out those important details, and it sways people's opinions one way or the other.
Right.
I'm kind of the old, the Edward R. Murrow and the Walter Cronkite, and give me all the information, let me make up my own mind.
Right. Well, I mean, and I guess in all fairness to the ADN, in this story, they do say later on down in the story that they weren't layoffs. The state cut the jobs anyway. There weren't layoffs. Instead, the posts were allowed to empty by attrition. But that's like that's like halfway through the article. They and everything else in the article, they've mentioned 4 or 5 times that it's workforce cuts and budget cuts and reduction in employees and all these other kind of phrases. So it leaves you with, because let's face it, I don't know what the statistics are now, but I remember a few years ago that there was a thing that I saw in passing that said most people read the headlines and the first, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 paragraphs of a news story. They never read the full story. So they load the whole story with all this invective and innuendo in the first 5-6 paragraphs of a story, and then buried down halfway or 3/4 of the way or at the bottom of the story, they lay out one nugget of truth that kind of countermands everything that they've done up top. And I am tired of it, but if the average American or Alaskan is only reading the first few paragraphs of the story, I guess they're winning that battle.
Sure. Well, that's, that all started with Headline News Network, right? Where they just reported the headlines. And, it's morphed into our politics. Now we just have bumper sticker politics where we just campaign and politic and discuss things based on little sound bites.
Right. It's 148 character politics, right? It's whatever the Twitter said. Right. That was the whole thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's frustrating. The second thing, and part of the story that came in through the ADN and the AP, was this discussion on the the Love Shack, the frat house, the youth hostel, whatever we're calling it. I like the idea of the Love Shack, but due to copyright laws, I can't play. I would play that little bit out of Love Shack every time. But I mean, this story, of course, this building was donated to the state. I don't know what the original cost of the building was, but I imagine it's probably, based on its location and everything else, it's $1 million plus building probably. And they gave the building and $2 million to the state for renovations. But now we're looking at $6.6 million in approved spending on top of the $2 million that was given. So it's $8.6 million, $267,000 per apartment. And these are 1-bedroom and studio apartments. I mean, Kevin, I'm not a builder, and maybe a builder will call and contradict me, but that just seems a little excessive for studio and 1-bedroom apartments. I mean, from what say you?
Well, yeah, that's pretty spendy for a remodel, I would say. My wife lived in one of those apartments and worked right below it when she staffed for Fred Zaroff in 1981. So the legislature does have some history in that building. I think it would be a great office building remodel for uh, Ledge Affairs and Ledge Legal. Some of those folks are over in the Terry Miller Gym building, and maybe we should consolidate them all. It's a little bit closer to the front doors of the Capitol, anyways. But I'm certainly not on Ledge Council who made that decision. I used to be on Ledge Council until I was summarily removed after my first meeting. So
wait a second. Summarily removed? You were just like, I'm sorry, you weren't supposed to be here? Was that the whole point?
Well, I was put on Ledge Council right after the Committee on Committees, after the organization of the 32nd Legislature. I was one of my committees was Ledge Council, and we had one meeting called, and there was some sort of controversy that I picked up on. It was the very first meeting, and my staff and I picked up on it, and we sort of brought it to the forefront. And I think I angered the folks, the more senior folks on there, and they removed me. And when Louise did that, and she had a valid reason. She said, "Look, this isn't a committee for freshmen," and maybe she was right. It seems to be all the senior leadership and that sort of thing, but who knows? Maybe they needed a freshman perspective. If you look at the purchaser or the money they're spending on this building.
Well, remember, this is the same committee that approved the whole Taj Mahal thing, right? I mean, this is the same.
Right.
This is the same body that's like, oh yes, let's build a thing with gold faucets in the bathrooms and glass elevators and everything else. I mean, it was like, oof, man.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier in the chat, you were in the chat room, and you said you didn't think that legislators would live there, but staffers might. What makes you say that? I mean, just from a perspective of as a legislator, why would you think that?
Well, I mentioned a little bit earlier, sometimes you just need to get away and decompress. I mean, the discussions and the debates, and even off of the floor, even outside of committee, the discussions in the offices, in the hallways, talking to people, meeting with people. Sometimes you need a break to recoup and decompress and
physical distance. Physical distance.
Yeah,
is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, you want to go to your living room and sit in front of your TV or the apartment that you have, and just decompress. You don't want to have to open your door and holler at the person across from you that has their stereo too loud, and it's the same person that you were debating earlier in the day. I just, I get the idea that they want us all to kind of get together and, the whole kumbaya thing, and can't we all just get along? That's certainly a mantra that I've heard recently. But they've never been in the military. Obviously, they just don't understand the pressure cooker that a barracks can be. And I mean, frankly, that's why frat houses and sorority houses get so wild and crazy because you can, you don't have any real leadership like a barracks, like a military barracks, to kind of compress the emotions. So.
Well, and the fact is that there's only 33 offices or 33 apartments being planned, and there's 60 legislators.
Well, you could always spend an extra $30,000 or $40,000 and buy bunk beds and pull out couches and put two to it.
Oh, could you imagine? You want the top bunk, Kev, or you want the bottom bunk? I mean, what do you, let's flip for it and see what's going on. I guess the bigger question, and this is a quote from, I can't remember if it was from Shower or Hughes, but the quote was essentially, this is not, the state shouldn't be in the, competing against private business, right? The state shouldn't be competing against private property owners, landholders, commercial property, whatever. And intellectually, I agree with that. But at the same time, if they've got a building that is been given to them and I don't know, give me your thoughts on this. I'm kind of torn on this. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, the state hasn't done real well as a business owner. There's too many facets of the whole thing that, and you mentioned one of them earlier, are we going to leave it empty for 9 months out of the year? Are we going to rent it out to the pilots that fly the float planes downtown, or the cruise ship, the dock workers on the cruise ships? Or are we just going to leave it empty? And somebody said, well, let's rent it out. And somebody else said, no, we need to leave it empty in case there's special sessions. Then folks will have a place to stay when they come down there. So, I don't know that the state has a good handle on how to be a landlord in a situation like this. Certainly the state owns some buildings and they are landlords. I think the DOT runs all those buildings, but I'm just not so sure that this is the right place. And Shelley and Mike are exactly right. Competing with the private sector in downtown Juneau might be a mistake. If I was a business owner or building owner in downtown Juneau, I'd be a little upset.
And just to give clarification, I just looked it up. It was Kathy Tilton who said, I am not a fan of the legislature being in the business of being a landlord and of competing with the private sector. So, I mean, I think I could agree that that's part of it. Kevin McCabe's our guest. Kevin, can you stick with us?
Sure.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about session priorities and what's coming up next. We're going to continue the Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
What is that?
Common Sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Kevin McCabe's our guest here on the program. Continuing with him here into the next segment. I mean, I don't know, Kev. You've been down there now for a few sessions and everything else. I mean, is it? Explain to us the difficulty of finding housing during the session and the special session. I mean, what walk us through how that works. Is it? Are you finding a B&B? Are you renting a room from somebody? Are you staying at a hotel? What are legislators doing?
Well, some folks stay in the hotel. There's a couple of hotels that offer discounts for legislators or a legislative price, but that only lasts until April, I think. And then, of course, as the tourist season starts to ramp up, the hotel price goes up. But it's still within the per diem. I think it's a 4 Points or Sheraton. Seems to me it's about $245 a night. So still underneath the per diem that we get, so it's still affordable. There's apartments. I rented an apartment at the top of Gold Street. It's about 4 blocks or 5 blocks from the Capitol. There's other B&Bs. The problem is that most of them have a finite lease. I think Assemblyman Sumner said his lease is up April 10th. I think they want him out, so he's going to have to figure something else out. So if we're not adjourned by then you end up kind of uprooting your life in the middle of when you should be debating the budget. So that's a problem, and I get all of that. And it's just the timing thing. Maybe it'd be better for us to shift the session. That would take a constitutional vote, but move the session to start closer to the first part of January. Then we'd get out a little bit before tour season. Something like that might be a better answer to the housing issue in Juneau.
Or just get the job done in the 90 days that the people voted for, or the 120 days that the Constitution calls for. I mean, I know it puts it close, but still, if we could just get the job done in that 90-day window, that would be it, right? 90 days, January, February, March, April, you'd be out by the middle of April and you'd be done. But of course, that's just an impossibility.
I don't know that it is. I mean, in the first year of COVID, so what was that, 2020, get out in 85 days or 84 days, and they just actually did the work, focused on the budget. And too often we get down there, we get focused on extraneous stuff. Like, was on the transportation committee last year, and we spent, I think, 4 meetings focused on something we could not affect at all, which was the governor's regulation change on 4-wheelers on state roads. And, I was talking to Grier Hopkins. I'm like, why are we doing this? Why are we listening to these presentations and focused on this when we can do nothing to affect it? It was the whole hovercraft comments and all that kind of stuff. It's like, holy cow, what are we doing? Let's get some bills. Let's focus on the budget.
Well, and I mean, I'm interested to see what did Grier Hopkins say back to that. I mean, at that point, I mean, that was,
Well, he was obviously not a fan of the governor's idea to put four-wheelers on the road.
Right.
And it took some convincing discussion to remind him that even though the four-wheeler's on the road, it still has to be street legal. It's still, you have to be licensed. I mean, there's all sorts of restrictions that might even make it safer if you're going to send your 16-year-old kid out to drive a four-wheeler to the grocery store, and he's going to have to drive on the road. Needs to have mirrors, needs to have signals or know how to signal, and excuse me, needs to be licensed. So I don't know.
Well,
it was
again, focusing on things that you have no control over makes absolutely zero sense. That's why I don't usually talk about national stuff, because we can't have an effect on that, and I just find it ultimately frustrating. And you're right. I mean, they got it done in 85 days. Since they passed the Citizens Initiative to limit the session to 90 days, it's been 14 years, 15 years now. I think that the legislature has accomplished that 3 times, including the COVID year. So it can be done, but it requires leadership to want to do it. Right? I mean, they're the ones driving the bus on this. They are the ones that need to, instead of slow walking stuff and using, and we've talked about this, time compression as a weapon. They need to be able to be focused to get it done.
Right.
So.
Yep, I agree.
All right.
I agree.
Chris in the chat room just said they debated on the strip club for a week. I didn't hear about that, but yeah, I guess we'll find out more about that. All right, Kevin McCabe, hold the line with us, folks. We're coming up on it. The Michael Duke Show continues. Your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Please like and share the show. Like and follow the show page. That's it. I guess that's it. 15. Oh, I was going to show you pictures of the studio. I'll show you pictures of the studio while we return to the radio here. This is what the new studio looks like. Here we go. Okay, welcome back to the program. Continuing now, one final segment. Kevin McCabe is our guest, and we're ready to jump back in. I was just sharing with the chat room pictures of the new studio that's been revamped over the holidays. Give folks just a little bit of a look at the magic behind the scenes is what we're doing. Thanks for coming on board. Let's get back to it. Kevin McCabe, our guest. I wanted to change gears just a bit, Kevin, and I wanted to talk about the upcoming session and what what you see is going to be some of the challenges. I mean, you're already kind of seeing a theme that's been laid out by the news media. Number one is the theme that, of course, we just don't care about the children because we're not funding our education system enough. And now this story that we talked about this morning where Alaskans, the thing actually says Alaskans are paying for budget cuts right now. And it seems to me that they're setting this whole thing up for either discouraging or for trying to eliminate any potential for efficiencies or budget cuts. What do you see as being the big issues coming up into this next session? And I don't want you to give away the farm on what you guys or the minority or the Republicans, minority, majority, whatever, are going to be talking. But what do you see as being the hot button issues and what's going to be kind of the theme of this year's legislative session?
Well, I absolutely think that it's going to be fiscal. I mean, I forget who said it during the Clinton race. It's the economy, stupid, right? and it's something that we have got to focus on. We've been dancing around it for the last 2 years that I've been down there with the fiscal policy working group and everything else. And I'm going through the occluding curve right now, the dead zone for cell phones. So you might lose me for a few seconds there, Michael. But yeah, it's going to be, we need a spending cap, whether it be constitutional or some form of spending cap that's better than the joke that we kind of have right now, and something that makes sense. We probably need to solve the PFD issue one way or the other. People probably aren't going to like it, but we need to come to some form of compromise so we can get that off the table, so we can work on the things that we actually need to work on. Those are some of the big ones, and of course, election integrity. There's some states now that have actually election fraud offices that they put in place underneath their inspector generals. So those are all interesting priorities of some folks. And I think we're going to have to find once we get a group together that wants to be in the majority, we're going to have to find the very divisive issues and set those aside and focus on the 4 or 5 issues that we can solve. And I'm good with that. If we can come together and solve a spending cap, James Kaufman, Senator-elect James Kaufman, has an interesting plan. There's several of them out there. The Fiscal Policy Working Group said that was a big deal. It's been a big deal for the Alaska Chamber of Commerce for a decade. So that probably is the number one issue with many people, and election reform, or reforms around election integrity.
Well, I mean, and I would say that the fiscal issues definitely are going to be, I think, top of everybody's priority. I mean, we had the largest budget ever over the last couple of years. We've had some of the largest budgets ever passed in the state. But I mean, I think when you say fiscal issues are going to be a concern, I would agree, but I think you're going to have two different viewpoints on this. And I think, if I'm not speaking out of school here, that your viewpoint is probably we could find efficiencies and we need to make government more effective and efficient and reduce some of those spending and having a spending cap and everything else. And it seems like there's a whole contingent in the legislature now, even from your own party, who are like, oh, it's fine, we can't cut anything, and so we just need to increase the spending, and we need to do the defined benefits, and we need to pay for more schools, and we need to do. It just seems like that it's going to be, I guess, loggerheads is what I'm saying.
Sure, and that's the rub. Of course, I say fiscal, and I mean fiscal responsibility, and maybe less government and sort of downward pressure on the budget. And some of the very liberal Democrats say fiscal, and they mean $1,000 increase to the BSA. So, or Common Core or other Title IX issues. So we have to hammer those out before we. So when we form around fiscal issues, we need to all have a clear understanding of what the fiscal issues that we intend to solve are actually, what they mean to us.
In your mind, is what is the best possible outcome as far as organization goes? I mean, is it the bipartisan Senate caucus is already there, the bipartisan majority in the Senate. Would the best thing in your mind be the bipartisan majority, or the Republican majority in the House, so that you could kind of counterbalance each other? I mean, is that kind of the best of the worst case scenario kind of thing?
Well, yes and no. Certainly, 21 is not the exact right number, and there are a number of independents that are in the House. So all the Republicans and maybe get an independent or two, so we have a 22-23 majority. That's just Kevin's wag, if you will. But yeah, to me, that would be the best outcome, is to have a bit of a foil between us and the Senate. I mean, the Senate's obviously ultimately going to, the House is supposed to deliver the budget, and the Senate makes their adds and subtracts to it, and we have a conference committee. So conference committee is going to look a little different this year, at least from the House perspective. So having conservatives on there would be the best outcome for Kevin.
Well, it'd be
not for others.
right, be the best outcome for Kevin. Well, and maybe the best outcome for the governor, because it would give the governor the opportunity, I think, to stand up to some of the policies that maybe he and the majority of more conservative folks in the state would agree with, and it gives him a veto-proof, or the veto-proof majority where he can, the veto protection, I guess, so that he could utilize the red pen. Although I don't know if that's in his wheelhouse, or if that's even something that he's looking at now.
Well, I'm sure he's looking at it, in just like everybody else. He's just kind of waiting to see how the House forms and what the legislature looks like before he makes a bunch of decisions on that. I'm almost certain. I haven't talked to him recently, but everybody's kind of taking this wait and see attitude until we actually get down there and get the House formed and see how it all shakes out. But certainly there's room in the budget for efficiencies. There just is. There always is. Whether it be hello Harold, the front license plate, or
well, you only saved $300,000. I mean, it was only $300,000, but I guess as we wrap things up here down to the last couple of minutes, do you expect this to be similar to what we saw before? I mean, are we going to have to wait a month for the House to actually organize? Is it going to, or do you think it may come together more quickly after the Jennifer Armstrong case wraps up and we have a better understanding? Or, what are your thoughts here quickly on that?
I think there is an agreement among most of us incumbents, especially, and certainly all the freshmen, that we need to do this before 30 days. We've got to get it done and show some adult leadership and get down there and do our jobs. That's kind of all there is to it. So, it might mean that the legislature, the House, looks different to some people than they expect. And they're just going to have to accept that that's the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, is the least worst choice, I suppose, is the best way to put it.
Well, and it sounds like you're saying it could be a coalition, but a coalition in the other direction, which again, I don't think is awful, but
sure. And there are some independents that want to be in the majority. That's why they're an independent,
right?
So
they can make
their
choice.
We may see some of that. Yeah, we may even see a Democrat or two. Remember, it used to be that the Bush caucus always caucused with the
Republicans.
The Bush Democrats always caucused with the Republicans. So
Kevin McCabe,
everybody.
Our guest, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on board this morning. Hold the line for a second. Folks, we're out of time. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. I'm sorry, Kevin, I wanted to give you the final bite there. Yeah, I mean, it used to be, like you said, that the Bush Democrats used to caucus all the time with a Republican majority. It seems like this whole idea of bipartisanship has become a dirty word. Now, maybe because what we've seen in the last 10 years is anything that smacks of bipartisanship is actually more democratically controlled than anything else. Maybe that's why. But, I mean, there's always the possibility that, because historically it has worked in the past.
Right. And you can make it work as long as there's room for discussion and debate. And I think you said it before, three words. Is it reason, logic, and rhetoric or something?
Right.
As long as you can put all that together and come to a compromise. And compromise isn't a bad word. I don't know why people always think compromise. I guess it's because we've been dragged so far to the left in many of our compromises. Republicans have. But really, compromise means everybody sort of meets in the middle, and everybody's a little bit upset with what happened, and maybe we need to get back to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, Kev, well, thank you for filling in this morning. I appreciate you calling up and giving us some insight on this. We're going to try and reach out to some of your fellow legislators here over the next week or so before the session starts. Thank you for coming on board. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Sounds good, Michael. Nice talking to you.
You too, sir. Appreciate it. Folks, we're out of time. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show continues tomorrow, 8 a.m. Be here. Be there or be squared. right? That's what it's all about. All right, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show. Well,